you must have enough knowledge in that particular business and how things are done, particularly how you lead the team in that organization to achieve the objective of that. That is called technical competence. You cannot pray for it, you cannot fast for it, you acquire it. And that's how we must think as Africans. And to do so, ladies and gentlemen, we must have trust. If we're going to become trustworthy, we need to have these competencies. And like I said, you don't pray about them, you learn them, you acquire them. So what is competence? One of the key things I mentioned was that if we are going to become credible leaders, we have to understand the concept of trust. Leadership begins with trust. And as I mentioned, trust is not a spiritual word. Trust is not a moral, it has nothing to do with morality. Trust is a combination of two things, which we are going to be discussing here. So when we talk about trust, we are talking about, it is, as I said, it is neither being liked nor being nice. In leadership, there's a concept we call the bad guy, the good guy. Now, if you're going to be a good leader and you want to be a good guy or a bad guy, you can never be effective. In other words, you want people to applaud you for who you are. That cannot take you far. Because people can read into your approach, your strategy. There is a difference between manipulation and motivation. When you manipulate people, you are pointing the finger to yourself. So you are using people for your own selfish interest. That's manipulation. But when you motivate people, you inspire them for the common good. That's motivation. The word motivation comes from two words, motive and action. That's where you get the word motivation. Motive and action. In other words, what is the intended objective that has inspired the action? That's where you get motivation from. So most of the time, when managers equate motivation to be monetary things, you are only focusing on the extrinsic. In other words, the external variables. But when you motivate people based on external variables, then you are moving into what we call transactional leadership. So for example, the leader says, these are your targets. If you meet this target, you get a bonus. That's transactional. The motivation is external. But if I paint a picture of a desirable future, and I'm able to inspire you such that out of your own volition, you see the benefit of what would come out of that vision, and you commit to pursue that vision, then that becomes intrinsic motivation. Whether I am there or not, you go after the goal. But if you go with transactional leadership, it is based on what you're expecting from the standpoint of reward. Am I going to get bonus? Am I going to get money? Am I going to get promotion? So if the promotion does not come, you retreat. You become discouraged. But today we want leaders who can intrinsically inspire themselves to achieve a common objective. That is the essence of leadership. And to do so, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to have to understand the concept of trust. Trust is a 5-letter word, but very, very powerful. So, look at this. Trust is based on two concepts, competence and character. That's where you get the word trust from. And so I'm going to take the two concepts and break it down. And when I finish, you come to appreciate why a leader who can never be trusted can never impact people. Because you become a transactional leader. You become a manipulator. And manipulators cannot inspire generations. My prayer and goal is that by the time you guys go back to your respective places, you become a motivator, you become an inspirational leader and not a transactional leader. That is what Africa needs. That is what our forefathers did. That is what they died for. And that is what we must also aspire. I tell people, let's die a little bit for the continent. And that's how we must think as Africans. And to do so, ladies and gentlemen, we must have trust. So what is competence? And I want us to look at that. Competence is the first element of trust. Now, competence means knowing what to do and how to get it done. That's competence. Knowing what to do and how to get it done. So if you tell everybody you're a lawyer, nobody would argue with you. But the day you go to court, that's when you know whether you know what to do and how to get it done. Because law is not English, it's legal. You say, I'm an accountant, nobody will argue with you. Can you balance the books? If you can't balance the books, you lack competence. And so you lose trust with your followers. And that is why when you are being promoted and you know that you don't qualify, tell your boss, Madam, sir, please let me wait here for a while, because if you put me in this position, I'll mess up. Why? I don't have what it takes. It's not a disgrace. You are only being real to yourself. And you save your leader or your head or your whoever is promoting you the trouble of having to come back and say, let me demote you because you didn't tell me you don't have the competence. So competence is knowing what to do and how to get it done. The what and the how of leading and managing others. That is what competence means in leadership. How do I lead and manage people in the 21st century in a manner that will make people follow me? Why? If you say you are a leader and nobody is following you, John Maxwell says you are only taking a walk. That's not leadership. So you need trust, and to have trust, you need to have competence and you need to have character. There are three areas of competencies you need. There are three areas of competencies you need. You need technical competence, you need operational competence, and you need what we call political competence. This political competence is not politics. It's what we call networking competence. Because in every organization, you are going to have people who are power brokers. You may be a leader. Let me give a very practical example. So my brother here may be, let's say, the head of an organization, and he has people who work under him. And the head of a particular department says that, or thinks that, if I'm able to network the accountant, my issues will be incorporated in the budget. But what you don't know is that in the organization, there's somebody close to the head who is more influential than the accountant. So if we're able to network the person who is more influential than the accountant, your issues will be brought into the budget, but the accountant cannot. That skill is called political competence. How to be able to leverage with everybody in the organization to get what you want to get for your department as a leader without being left out is what we call political competence. In every organization, there's what we call power base. Corporate politics is there. And the leader must know how to be an active participant of that corporate politics for the positive sense. And that comes under political competence. It's called networking competence. In the afternoon, I will show you something about that when we are talking about team building, and you understand what this means. A leader must have these competencies, otherwise you're not going to go far. You'll be a solo leader. You only be operating in your silo. And today, in a systemic world, you cannot operate in that context. Am I making myself clear? Yeah? Very, very important. So let's take each one of them and then we explain it. What is technical competence? We're talking about trust. When we talk about technical competence, ladies and gentlemen, it's about knowing what to do. Knowing enough about the business or the organization you are leading and understanding what leaders do in that organization. It's called technical competence. Very, very important. What does this business stand for? You cannot be a leader of that department when you have nothing, you don't know anything about entrepreneurship. In other words, you lack technical competence. So for you to say, I am the leader of this department, you must know what to do. You must have enough knowledge in that particular business and how things are done, particularly how you lead the team in that organization to achieve the objective of that. That is called technical competence. You cannot pray for it, you cannot fast for it, you acquire it. You can't go if you're a Christian and say, Makashata, le, borondo, brakakakakaka, I'm competent. It doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. You can't go and fast for 5 months and say, I've become a lawyer. You go and sit in the classroom for 4 years to become a lawyer. It's called technical competence. Am I helping somebody here? How would you feel if you go to the hospital and the doctor comes with his overall, with his stethoscope around the neck, and then say, I'm going to operate your stomach, but I didn't go to medical school. I only prayed to become a doctor. How would you feel? I'm telling you, get up from the surgical bed and say, because he doesn't have technical competence. Listen, gentlemen, a leader who is not competent in his area is a very dangerous species. It's like giving AK-47 to a man who doesn't have brains. Technical competence. And this is what Africa needs. Now, the ability to guide others and make a difference, make intelligent decisions and judgment calls, that is called technical competence. Can you look at the variables within the context and systematically make a reasonable decision out of these variables so that it will impact on the organization in the future? That is what is called technical competence. It is not something that you can do emotionally. You must apply the intellect, the brain. That's why I always, when I meet leaders who don't like to read, I get afraid. Because what you know 3 days, now it's been proven now that what we know expires every 6 months. Knowledge-wise, it expires. So if you want to become relevant as a leader, you must constantly upgrade. I'm not saying go to the classroom, but read to expand your knowledge. Read. Invest in your head. This is technical competence. Is it well understood? The next one is called operational competence. Operational competence is about knowing how to apply what you know. How to apply the technical competence is called operational competence. It is not enough to become a lawyer, to finish law school. If you keep losing all your cases in court, you lack operational competence. Every time you go to court, you have the technical knowledge. You have acquired knowledge in your head, but you can't apply it. It's like a professor who teaches mathematics, but is broke. He doesn't have money. Even though the law of compound interest is a mathematical concept, he teaches it, but he's broke. Because he doesn't know how to apply the concept of compound interest in creating wealth. That's lack of operational competence. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Leaders who don't have operational competence are a misfit. It's like putting square peg in a round hole. Africa doesn't need it. All these Chinese who come, sometimes they are first degree holders, and we give them red carpets, and then they come and ask questions, and then we give them the answers. And yet we give them red carpets. No, we must stop that. Because we have technical people who are operationally qualified to do these things. And that must start with you. Am I helping? Okay? Very important. Operational competence is knowing how and when to put your knowledge into practice effectively. That brings us to the difference between wisdom, knowledge, and common sense. The 3 words are not the same. You can have knowledge, but if you lack common sense and wisdom, you appear as somebody who is misfit. When I come next time, I would explain the 3, and we'll use diagrams to show it, for you to understand that it is not enough to walk around telling people, I am a lawyer, I'm an accountant. No. You must be able to balance the books, interpret accounting principles, and how to use them to add value to your organization. That is what makes you competent and trustworthy as a leader. Okay? And then finally, we look at political competence, and I've explained that already. Political competence is about knowing who does what in an organization and how to influence them to get what you want. That is political competence. It's not standing on a rally to make political speech. No, this one is internal competence of networking. If the participants were a small group, we would do a lot of exercises for you to understand how this thing works. That's political competence, all right? The team or department you manage is part of a larger organization. And you need to know how to function in that organization effectively to get what you want as a leader. To do so, you need to have political competence. So when you walk into any environment, by scanning the environment, you must know where is the power brokers, who are the power brokers in that organization. By observation. One of the skills a leader must have is observation. When you walk into any environment, within 5 minutes, scan the environment, look at the body language, look at the way people are seated. It tells a lot about who they are. A leader must have that. You must have the 5 senses. So guys, if we're going to become trustworthy, we need to have these competencies. And like I said, you don't pray about them, you learn them, you acquire them.